So these are the notes on 1.5, solving single variable inequalities. Jot that down, and let's begin. Obviously, we need to start with the inequality itself. What is this? Anybody? What symbol is that? Greater than? Less than? Greater than or equal to? Less than or equal to. All right. So what belongs between the 4 and the 5?
The less than.
The less than, right? Now, if you're, let's go back to the 4th grade here. Let's say you're totally confused. You don't know what symbol goes where. Just think of the crocodile, right? It's hungry. It wants to eat the bigger value. So if it's going to choose between the 4 and the 5, it's going to pick the 5 because 5 is bigger. Make sense? All right. So let's compare some other numbers. How about negative 56 compared to negative 58? Negative 56 is greater than 58? Yes, it is, right? So it's going to want to eat that negative 56. Why is that? If you think about the number line, the negative 56 is closer to the positive values than the negative 58. In other words, the negative 58 is further to the left, which makes that less, and the negative 56 is on the right side, which makes it greater. That's great. I said great instead of right. What? Okay, check it out. Let's actually all draw a simple number line. And like I said, a lot of us already know this stuff, but just a refresher. It doesn't have to be up to 5. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw any number line, a couple of values. And this is what I want you to do. On the left side of the number line, write down left, less. And on the right side, write down right, greater. It's that simple. So if I tell you compare negative 3 with negative 2, which one's greater? The negative 2. Why is the negative 2 greater? Because it's on the right side. The negative 3 is less. Why is it less? Because it's on the left side. Okay? Left, less, greater, right. Any questions? Simple. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff written on this slide. Don't copy it all down. All right? Let's read it, let's understand it, and then copy what you need and shorten it, put it in your own words, all right? So we're going to be graphing inequalities on a number line. And these are the tips that I give you. If the inequality has a solid line underneath it, it'll be a solid dot on your graph. And I'll explain why in a little bit. If the inequality does not have a solid line underneath it, then it's not going to be a solid dot. It's going to be an open dot. Okay. Another tip I give is to make sure your variable is on the left side. And if it is less than symbol, it goes to the left. And if it's a greater than symbol, it goes to the right. And that only happens when the variable is on the left side. Okay? So I don't know if you want to, I wouldn't copy all this down. Let's just copy down what's important, like the tips. I would say get x on the left side. Instead of make sure variables on the left side, just get x on the left side. That's easier, quicker to copy. So as we look at this inequality, is x on the left side? No, it's not. Okay, so how about this? Don't copy down the notes right now. Let's just pay attention for a little bit. I'll give you guys time right now to copy it down. So x is not on the left side, so I want it on the left side. I'm going to switch it. I want to take this negative 3 and this x, and I'm going to switch them. Okay, so the x is now going to be on the left side the way I wanted it, and the negative 3 is going to be on the right side, the way I wanted it. And that inequality symbol has to flip also, because if it's opening up to the x here, it has to continue opening up to the x down there. So it's going to also flip the way we flip the x and the negative 3. Okay, so this is the first thing you should do, just to make it more clear for you, to get the x on the left side. That's the first thing you should do always. Maybe we should put that right there. Number 1, make sure variable is on the left side. Okay, and then after that, I should have probably written all this in order. But after that, you want to determine, I'm going to put a 2 right here. You want to determine if your inequality is representing a solid dot or an open dot. Okay. Now, if it has a solid line underneath it, it's going to be a solid dot. And this does not have a solid line underneath it. So it's going to be an open dot at negative 3. So we're going to go to negative 3. And then finally, the third part, Man, I'm a horrible teacher. I put all these details all out of order. So the first part, make sure the variable's on the left side. Second part, the inequality, if it has a solid line underneath it, it's going to be solid. If it doesn't, it's going to be open. And the third part, if it's a less than symbol, it goes to the left. If it's a greater than symbol, it goes to the right. So this says x is greater than -3. Greater than is to the right. So we're just going to go from that open dot and draw an arrow to the right. And that's how we graph inequalities. Now, let's explain why it's an open dot instead of a solid dot. So this says x is greater than -3. Okay? Is 5 greater than -3? Yes. Is 0 greater than -3? Yes. Is -2 greater than -3? Yes. How about is negative, let me do this. Is -2.5 greater than -3? Yes. Is -2.9 greater than -3? Is -2.9999999 greater than -3? Yes. But is -3 greater than -3? No. So that's why it's an open dot. You cannot include the -3. So the only time you could include the -3 is if it has the or equal to -3, which is that solid line underneath the inequality. So I hope this helps refresh your memory. So first of all, these are all out of order. That's horrible. So if you want to copy them down, at least copy them down in order. But I would rewrite it in your own words. I would shorten it. I'm going to pause it here to give you guys some time. So for example, on number 2, on part 2, I wouldn't write down the whole thing. Just remember that if the inequality has a solid line, it's going to be a solid dot. Solid line, solid dot. That's all you really need to remember. Solid line, solid dot. So again, shorten it and write it in your own words. Here's another cool detail. Even this third part, if it's a less than symbol, it goes to the left. If it's greater than, it goes to the right. Okay, that's fine. But if you do have the variable on the left side, you could even not even think about the greater than or less than. If it's pointing this way, then it's going to go this way. If it's pointing the other way, it's going to go the other way. So that's another advantage of having the x on the left side, because whichever way the inequality is pointing, that's the way your graph is going to go. So if you want to remember it that way, that's fine. Or if you want to use the less than is to the left, greater than is to the right, that's fine also. But all those tricks only work when the variable is on the left side. Could we move on? All right. Solving an inequality is almost exactly as solving an equation. It's done almost the same, right? Just remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative on your last step, you must flip the inequality symbol. Okay, so again, don't write all this down. Unless you have no idea what's going on, then yeah, write it down. Okay, but all you need to know is that it's just like solving an equation. But the only difference is that if you multiply or divide by a negative number on your last step, you must flip the inequality symbol. So if anything, if you don't remember this stuff, just write that down. If you multiply or divide by a negative on the last step, flip the inequality symbol. And we're going to go over an example right now. But I'm going to pause it, give you guys a moment to copy down at least what's in red right there. That's important. So let's take a look at this example that we have right here. Just pretend it's an equation. If it were an equation, what would your first step be? What? Subtract 5 from both sides. Thank you. Yeah, I would copy down the example, yeah. So I would subtract 5, just like if it were an equation. If this were an equal sign, you want to get x by itself on the left side of the equal sign. You subtract 5 to get rid of the 5, cancels out. What's left? We have a negative 2x left, greater than 1 take away 5 is negative 4. So that's our new equation. Nope, sorry, it's not an equation, it's an inequality. So now we need to do our final step, which would be to do what? Divide by? Negative 2. Okay, so when you hear the words divide by negative, and it's your last step, some bells should be going off in your head, because that's when you flip the inequality symbol. No other time. Only if you multiply or divide by a negative, that's when you flip the inequality symbol. So if this would have been a positive 2x and you divide by 2, you don't flip the symbol, right? Or if it were x minus 2 and you add 2, you don't flip the symbol. So the only time you flip the symbol is if you multiply or divide by a negative on your last step. So right here we are getting rid of the multiplication, we're dividing by a negative 2. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. Cancels, the x comes down, we're done. But since I divided by a negative, I have to flip the inequality symbol. And that becomes a positive 2 right there. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. And that is our answer. The only other thing we need to do once we get our answer to the inequality is to do a quick sketch of a number line, if I ask you to on the quiz, and graph that inequality on a number line. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, negative 1. Okay, so is this going to be a solid dot or an open dot? Open dot, because the only time it's solid is if you have the or equal to, a solid line underneath. So this is definitely going to be an open dot at 2. And which direction is this inequality pointing to? To the left, right? Or you could have said it's a less than symbol, and the less than goes to the left. The greater than symbol goes to the right. And on your homework, it doesn't actually do the arrow up and this way. On the homework, it just goes, it does the open dot, and then it draws it right on it. The only reason I go up and over just so it'll be a little more clear. That's kind of gross. Anyway, let's do a couple more problems, and then you'll be ready for your homework. Might as well copy this one down. So what do I do? Thank you. Then you rewrite everything. Negative 8r is greater than or equal to 16. Yeah, we did not change the inequality symbol because we're not even on our last step yet. So it's on your last step when you multiply or divide by a negative. We are on our last step right now. We're going to get rid of this multiplication of negative 8 by dividing by negative 8. What? Divide by a negative, what does that mean? Flip the symbol. So what do I have left? I have an r. I flip the symbol, and 16 divided by negative 8 is negative 2. Ta-da! You see, it's easy. Okay. Open dot or closed dot at negative 2? Closed. If you accidentally draw it open, just fill it in. It's a closed dot. Why is it closed? Because there's a solid line underneath. If it's a solid line underneath, it's going to be a solid dot. Okay? And which way is my graph going? To the left or to the right? To the left. This way. That way. Now, why is it to the left? If you have your variable on the left side, well, it's pointing to the left, so it's going to the left. Or you could say, if you have your variable on the left side, this says less than is to the left. If it would have been a greater than, that would have been to the right. Let's do another. Do we need more time on this one or no? Okay. Let's jump to, I don't know, should I do this one? Let's go for a crazy one. Let's get this out of the way. It's too easy. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this dinner. Yeah. What now? I want to pause it. Go for it. But I didn't see everybody's. So let's keep going right here. First thing is to simplify. Whether it's an equation or an inequality, you want to simplify each side. So that means that, ignore one side of it for a while. Just focusing on one side, simplify it, and then simplify the other side. So you're going to distribute. And I like to put a circle around the 5 with the minus sign. That way it looks like a negative 5. So negative 5 times n is negative 5n. Negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And then you bring down the 4n that's out in the front. And after distribution, you try to combine like terms, the terms that are alike. In this case, the n's. There's an n right there and an n right there. You have 4n minus 5n. 4n take away 5n is negative 1n. So you're going to have a negative 1n plus 15. Now that's all you could do on the left side. I'm going to bring down this inequality. It's still greater than. And I look at the right side now. And again, distributive property first and then combining like terms. So distributive property, 3 times n is 3n. 3 times 1 is 3. And you bring down the minus 4 at the end. So out of these 3 terms, which ones could we combine? The 3 and the 4. Okay, so let's combine 3 with the minus 4. That gives us a minus 1, a negative 1. So on the right side, I have the 3n with a minus 1. So this right here is our new simplified inequality. And now we're able to start thinking about the goal, getting n by itself on one side. So it depends. I mean, there's many roads to the same place. You could choose to add 1n and move it this way, or subtract 3n and move it this way. If you're following the notes that I gave you, you would try to get the n's to the left side. I think it's a little easier. So subtract 3n, you'll have negative 4n plus 15 is greater than the negative 1 on that side. Okay, so now let's get n by itself on the left side. And go minus 15, you will have negative 4n is greater than minus 16. So the final step would be to get rid of the multiplication of negative 4 by doing the opposite, dividing by negative 4. And your final answer will be n. Why did I put x? I don't know. N is less than positive 4. Now there's many roads to the same place. You could have done it completely different. You could have ended up with 4. Let me actually write this down. I saw some people write the answer like this. 4 is greater than n. That's totally fine. It's 100% correct. But I like it with the letter on the left side, especially if you're going to be graphing, because when you graph, oh, wait a minute, I think we already have a number line. Yeah, we do. When you graph, if the letter's on the left side, you could just see which way it's pointing. Oh, it's pointing to the left. Or it's a less than symbol. The less than goes to the left. So it's going to be an open dot at 4, and it's going to the left. And that's it.